Good morning. I'll call this meeting to order. We're going to talk about the excavator license, L22EXC0084, Drain Service Incorporated. Brenda Daring to explain.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I want to thank you for taking the time this morning. Today, we are here to discuss the City of Fargo Excavators license for Drain Services Incorporated and my recommendation that the Commission revoke that license. I want to assure you, we do not take this lightly. We have been working with them over previous years, trying to collaborate on ways to for him to work in the right of way and be in compliance. And that has just been unsuccessful. So today I have Casey McNary, our Assistant City Engineer, that will be presenting along with Kevin Gorder, our right-of-way engineer, and they'll be presenting the information associated with my recommendation today.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Casey McNary, I'm one of the Assistant City Attorneys for the City of Fargo. I've been asked to provide a little bit of information pertaining to the issue before the Commission today. I'm going to provide a little bit of information on the city's excavation code, which is contained in City Ordinance Chapter 18-09. A little bit of procedural history about why we're here today, and then also to inform the Commission about some prior legal proceedings involving drain services. The city ordinance requires any person or entity performing excavation within the public right-of-way to be licensed by the city as an excavator. A person or entity holding a city-issued excavation license is then allowed to perform excavation within the right-of-way. Holding that license is a privilege. It's not a right. If the Commission revokes the city-issued license of drain services, it will no longer be able to perform excavation work within the public right-of-way, but that decision is not going to impact drain services' ability to excavate private property that's located within the city. What is excavation? It's defined by ordinance. In its simplest form, I guess the way to describe it is it's the removal or disturbance of any material to a depth of 3 inches or more within the traveled right-of-way for any street or alley, or it's the disturbance of material to a depth of 10 inches or more in any areas of publicly owned property. So that's the confines within which city-issued excavators, licensed city excavators operate. And there's essentially 2 requirements for a person or entity to obtain a license or to allow it to excavate within the right-of-way. The first is it has to be licensed as a contractor by the state of North Dakota. And the second, it has to be licensed by the city as an excavator. To obtain a city-issued license, the person or entity has to file an application with the auditor's office, fulfill a fee requirement, satisfy the bond requirement, and then also be insured. The proof of liability insurance has to be filed with the auditor. And what that is meant to cover is instances of negligence by the licensee, incompetence by the licensee, omissions in the performance of its work. And actually the city ordinance speaks to a couple of examples. It would be if the licensee is careless with guarding the excavation site and it creates a hazardous condition, or they fail to restore the public property to as good of a condition as it was in before it started its excavation work on that site. For your information, the bond requirement is $25,000. And city ordinance also requires the licensee to work with, to strictly comply with the requirements for materials and work performed. And the ordinance gets into some details about that, what that entails, but I'm not going to address those specifically for purposes of this hearing. So why are we here? There was a prior hearing scheduled for November 28th. I sent a letter to Council for Drain Services on November 8th, which provided Drain Services an opportunity to voluntarily surrender its city-issued excavation license. I had a discussion with Council for Drain Services on November 21st, and I was informed during that phone call that Drain Services would agree to surrender its city-issued license. There were some further discussions between myself and Drain Services attorney over the coming days. And then on November 23rd, I received an email from Drain Services attorney indicating that it would no longer agree to voluntarily surrender its license. So we looked for a date to have this hearing rescheduled, and notice was provided to Drain Services attorney on December 8th. So that's why we're before you today. One last issue I want to speak to before I turn it over to Kevin Gorder. The city has had prior legal proceedings against Drain Services. Back in 2019, Drain Services completed some work under the city's sewer repair policy, and it was overpaid by a little over $8,600. And the city requested that that money be returned. Drain Services refused to do that. So the city attorney's office actually commenced a small claims proceeding against Drain Services. And minutes before the small claims hearing was set to happen, there was a settlement reached. As a result of that settlement, Drain Services signed what's called a confession of judgment, and it agreed to pay the city over the course of, I believe, three installment payments. The first settlement check that Drain Services provided to the city was actually returned for lack of funds. So the city had to ultimately file that confession of judgment and get a judgment against Drain Services for the amount that was owed. That judgment was eventually paid sometime in 2020, but I thought it was important for the commission to understand that there is some history of legal proceedings here as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Gorder. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Thanks for getting together with us today. I want to do a little bit of stuff here to connect the dots a little bit for you guys as far as why we're really here. The City of Fargo Engineering Department has some responsibilities in the right-of-way. We manage and protect that right-of-way, all of our infrastructure, whether it's underground, above ground, sidewalks, the whole gamut, right, from property line to property line. We try to serve our residents. We're trying to be involved in the process so that our residents are getting good repairs, so that their services are functioning properly and they are getting what they're paying for. And the last thing that we really feel like we need to do is really protect our employees. And we're going to get into some things later that is something that's really important to us about protecting our employees. So Casey talked about what is an excavator. Okay, so how does that matter? So in the city of Fargo, on the sewer service from the main to the residence to the house, the resident is responsible. On the water service, from the stop box, which is typically between the sidewalk and the curb, to the residence, that's a property owner's, the resident's responsibility. When they need these things repaired, they hire an excavator. So now this excavator that we licensed is working in our right-of-way to fix our residents' sewer and water services. So that's the connection. Now that's what they're doing on behalf of the residents. We are not a party to that contract. It is a contract between the residents and the excavator. So we are not a party to it. So I said that, but we have a participation policy that kind of puts us in the middle of it. We have a program to assist our residents. There are some items that have to be checked to get that participation. So basically what they need to do is they need to go all the way to the sewer main. And there's a little cross section up there. It's a lot, so you can see where the A is, that's the house. The street section where it kind of drops right in the bottom, that is the connection. So if they go all the way to the connection, they get participation from the city of Fargo. Since almost all of the connections in the residential properties are in the middle of the street, it's a very complex issue. You're digging up the street, you're going down 9 to 19 feet down to find the sewer main and making that connection. It's complex, it adds cost, that's what we have the policy for. So if you would look at that cross section, I also want to show you that from property line to property line, if you were to kind of circle that, that is engineering's responsibility. Specifications apply. From the property line to the house, that's a licensed plumber issue and inspections. So there's kind of a line there that kind of, it's fuzzy. We've got an inspector that works part-time for engineering, part-time for inspections, and he kind of covers it all, but that's kind of how the relationship goes. So, I just also wanted to share, this is a GIS map of the last 3 years worth of sewer service, or plumber cuts we call them, sewer or water service. We did almost 421. We've done a little over 322 so far. If you look closer at the map, you can see a lot of the repairs are in our core neighborhoods, the older homes. Stuff's getting old. I also want to point out that with all of these repairs, and that's a lot of dots on a map, we work with multiple contractors. The bigger ones are listed, and they're only because they pulled more permits than anyone else. It has nothing to do with anything else except the number of permits they pulled. So those are the top 4, and we work very well with all of them. It's not a perfect world. When things are 100 years old, nothing's perfect. 60 years old, whatever you want to use. But we collaborate and we can get good products built for our residents. But it takes collaboration. Drain services averages about 3 repairs a year. So they don't do a lot of repairs in town. Before I go any further with that, I want to just also remind you that repair requirements within the city of Fargo they're required to follow municipal code and our city's construction specifications. And that really makes sure that we get a good quality patch, so we don't get increased costs to the cities, or we get potholes and issues with our residents complaining about what the street looks like because of a bad patch. So we do require things like that. All right, so let's get more to drain services. We've issued 17 permits since 2016. I'm going to talk about 6 of them, just for timing purposes. I'm going to show you these 2 pictures. There's a lot to unpack on these pictures, and I really don't want to get too hung up on the details. What you see in the drawing on the left, the white sheet of paper, that was a supplement to a site plan that the city engineering department reviewed and approved only with this addition. The water main is on the street side of a storm sewer going to this new development in North Fargo. With the picture, you can see the picture, that red line kind of on the right side of the picture, that is the water main. The storm sewer is sitting right next to it, just a little bit left of that. And where I circle the stuff in that yellowish color, that is how drain services installed the water service at about 5 foot of depth. We required it to go under because we want 7 to 7.5 feet so it doesn't freeze. So, real quick, this could have impacted the residents to lost water if that thing would have froze. So we required it. Drain services worked on this project from July through December and made a temporary connection at a 5 foot depth. I had multiple conversations personally with him, along with others, water department, our inspectors, our technicians. Nothing, it wasn't going anywhere. So I contacted the property owner to get site plan compliance. And what the end result was, we went into winter with this installed this way, and 3 city blocks could have lost water service had that thing froze. At the end of the next year, the owner contracted with a different excavator to fix the incorrectly installed water service. So this map is everybody inside that yellow circle, if that would have froze, would have been without water. That is the impact to our residents because he refused to follow a site plan. Okay, concrete patchwork. This is at 7th Street North. Nice patch, nice work, right? This looks really good, except we require them to seal the joints where the new concrete meets the old. Try to reduce water infiltration. Water infiltration brings problems. We want to make sure it's sealed up. Had it been more than 1 panel, we would have had to seal a joint through the middle. Drain services chose not to do that. This permit was issued, I gotta catch up here, January 8th of 21. It still has not been sealed. Concrete patches, this is a repair on 5th Avenue South. He shared it with another excavator, so there were 2 excavators in this area. The permit was issued December 21. So the concrete patch in June started failing. We notified the excavator that this was failing, and the picture in the middle, they went out and installed wood stakes and wrapped some yellow tape around it in the middle of a collector street in our city as traffic control. A car hits that, a motorcycle hits that, huge safety concern. And you can see the failure way to the right, you can see the failure of that joint on that temporary patch. So we required the excavator to come in, correct the repair. So in June they repaired it, and in July The picture in the lower left hand is what the patch looked like in a month. I want to point a couple things out here. The sand and gravel on the road from the patch deteriorating. If you're a motorcycle rider and hit that, that would be exciting at best. But I also want to point out, they seal the joints on this one. It's a temporary patch. They chose to seal the joints here, but didn't go up to 7th Avenue North. So asphalt patches, and there's 3 instances here of asphalt patches that we're dealing with. Our specs require, City Ordinance 180908, 0910, and our city specifications require a smooth saw cut on all sides of the patch. You really want to get a nice chunk of repair material in there, a vertical edge so the load transfers. You're not, by leaving it like this, you get water inside those layers, you get partial layers that are busting out, you're really asking for a lot of problems. We worked with him a lot on this, and we just never were able to get a compliance. And this is what it looks like. If you scrape the snow off, this is what it looks like today. Just another example, a couple other locations in town. All of these permits were November, December of 21, so they're about a year old at this point. So those are the items that we're talking about of lack of compliance issues. As we try to communicate with Drain Services, I worked here 4 years, and I've worked with them almost since the first day I was here, and working with him is a challenge. And these are the kind of emails we get from him. This email was sent to our auditors, our city auditor, inspection staff, engineering staff, the attorney for Drain Services, and the permit holder, as he's trying to make his case for me explaining things to him, and he doesn't have much wiggle room apparently. At one point in the last couple years, like it does for a few of our excavators, Casey talked about a contractor's license from the state, and a bond and insurance. Those things have different expiration dates. So sometimes they expire. And we just send them a letter. We say, hey, do you know your insurance has expired? We really need to get a new copy of your insurance to ensure you're insured on our right-of-way. So he sends this to his insurance agent, copies the auditor. American Family wouldn't even accept the email because of the language. But this is what we get. And he goes on to double down on it. And if you look at the bottom of the left-hand screenshot, with City Hall opening back up, the last thing you want me down there is screaming at you. Middle one, keep the presses running at the forum. That's his kind of how he deals with us. He always wants to make it about something else, not about what it is. So I'm going to go back to that concrete patch on 1502 7th Street North. We tried to get him to attempt to fix it. We issued a violation on June 17th. What's a violation? It is really just a form letter saying, we've tried talking to you, it's not working, here it is in writing. There's no penalties, there's no taking anything away, we give it to him. So June 17th, he calls Dave. Dave is our right-of-way manager, our locator, works with all the plumbers in town, and you can see some of his language and his comments about how the phone call went. He promised to go up the chain of command, he was gonna have Dave fired, and he threatened him. So Kevin did go up the ladder, talked to Brenda. Brenda addressed it on a phone call, and then we arranged a face-to-face meeting with Kevin Cameron. That meeting was originally scheduled for the end of June. In the middle of July, we were able to have that meeting. So we thought we could make things work. September 1st, we get a text message. Dave forwarded it to me on an email, which was, he's gonna bring that threatening attitude back out. And then we get further in the year. In December, this is what he gets, what he sends to me. So, and you don't have to read the whole email. It's just the stuff in yellow. We're just trying to highlight some of the ways he communicates with us. Okay, so emails, we've talked about them. Going back to the one on 703 10th Avenue North, where he did not follow the site plan, and I contacted the owner. This is a voicemail he left for me. You start to the beginning.
Know what's going on with it's your Kevin, you're kind of being a chick. It's your job to talk to me. Your department granted my licenses. I've played by the rules. There's a problem with your department. It's defunct. We've had issues in the past, and we're having issues again. I will call you relentlessly until you grow a pair and call me back. Forget about Brenda. Forget about Christy. If you don't call me back and play like a man, I'll just go to the forum and let them know what's going on with Fargo Engineering. I'm sure everybody would love to know that the from back in the day is resurfacing with all of her bad juju problems. Be a man and deal with this. You stepped on the wrong turf and you're screwing with the wrong business. And the way you're going about it with my customer and their business, I don't care how long you've known Brandon. What you're doing isn't right. Whoever's pissing in your guys' ear about me, you need to tell them to shut the up, and you guys need to fix this. I expect a phone call first thing in the morning tomorrow to let me know when the hell this meeting's going down. I'm flying into town screaming. I can't wait to meet with all of you and see you face to face and have somebody lie about who told me how to do this water main and how it was supposed to be done right.
And then I'll just finish up with some of the communications with text messaging. So it's kind of the trifecta. We get the text messaging here, and this is a screenshot of Dave's phone and how he's communicating with Dave. With that, I think Brenda's going to talk about staff adjustments and things like that, some of the things we've done to counteract some of this and try to protect our employees.
So yeah, over the last years, what we've done, we've made the following adjustments. So what we have just let our locators and right-of-way managers know that when they do have projects within the city of Fargo, that they go out in pairs, that we usually have 2 people out there working with them so that there is another person there. And then also with our technical staff follow these practices along with mains and hydrants. So everyone communicating with drain services, we're sending them out 2 people at a time, where really only 1 person needs to go there, but due to that hostile environment, we really like to have 2 people there. And then also all the correspondence, we have asked him, my technicians should not have to be dealing with this. And so we've asked that all communication go through Kevin or myself, and that they're not getting that upfront communication with drain services. And so with this presentation, you have my recommendation, and that is to revoke the City of Fargo excavator's license for drain services. And we take any questions you have.
Any questions from the commissioners? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. And then I have a
Discussion.
question.
Commissioner Preston.
So, Brenda, I'm assuming the state license covers private property?
Correct.
So is there a sharing of information with the state so that people aren't out there using them?
I guess I would ask, we're happy to share that information. I don't know, I'd ask Nancy or Casey to comment on where we can share that information. Because I know, so I don't,
Well,
I know
think
we've
what-
had this
I think what she's
conversation
asking
offline.
is if we could share with the state, just that we're revoking the license City of Fargo, so people are aware of it.
Correct. We can share that information with them, I would assume.
Yes, it can be shared with them. I do think, though, that if it's a private matter, those complaints need to be made to the Attorney General's office for that contractor's license to be impacted as well.
Commissioner Strand.
I would like to hear from the business if I could. This is a hearing, correct?
Yes.
And they are not here.
They're not here at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. We have no other business. We stand adjourned.